Doing an intro?
No pressure.
No pressure. I better live up to Eric's intros then. I think the way we're going to do it, Leanne, is I'm going to do like basically your roots in football and the playing career. Claire's going to do the Scotland career, and then Ashley's going to do coaching and media and future.
Okay, sounds good.
So three kind of segments. We'll try and keep it so that you don't like get kept for like 90 minutes like everybody else does, but we'll do our best. Do our best to keep it down to an hour so you get a life and get back to your life.
I'm going straight to the Scotland game tonight. So they have requested that I'm there for 4:45. So
there you go.
I'll be pushing it if it's 90 minutes, but if we're around 60, 75, we're all good.
We'll do that, no problem. We'll get it out there, no worries.
All good when you are, Kingy.
All good to go. Good morning, everybody. First of all, good morning, everybody, and thanks a lot to Leanne Crichton for joining us. Really looking forward to this one. The good thing you've got to know about Leanne is you're following on from John Hughes, Davy Martindale, and Owen Coyle. So number 4 in our fall series, and it's really great to welcome you on, and also to welcome on Claire Ward and Ashley Burnett, who are going to be presenting with me today. We're going to start off, because I know you've got to get to the Scotland game, so we're going to race through your entire career in hopefully an hour and get it done, and then find out a little bit more about the Scotland days, and also your coaching ambitions, and obviously the media, because every expat over here gets to listen to you on the BBC and see your relationship with, I should say relationship with Tomo, but your broadcasting relationship with Stephen Thompson growing as it gets better. So I'm going to go right back to the start, and I'm not going to mention your dad in the first question because I played against him, and a lot of people on the call will know him. But when I was doing some research, thinking back to the start, and basically in girls football then, I think you were at Cumbernauld Cosmos. Was that your first team?
Yeah, that was the first girls team. Firstly, thanks very much for having me on. I've been looking forward to this, and hope that I don't waffle on too long with my dulcet tones. But Cumbernauld, I mean, it was tough back then because there wasn't a lot of girls teams kicking about really to go and join. So I almost played football recreationally with my brothers and friends that I lived close by to. School football was a big thing in Glasgow, so that kind of brought a number of opportunities. But I was probably 15, I think, when I joined Cumbernauld, and it was almost through default. You know, I had went along to, one of my brothers was at a Easter football camp, I think it was, and by chance I was just, keeping the ball up at the side of the pitch, showing off like you would try and do everywhere I went with the boys. I always tried to make it about me. And the coach from Cumbernauld was there and had said, look, she looks like she can play, come along and give it a go. And there was a whole network of girls and women's football, to be honest, that I had somehow managed to miss out living in the East End of Glasgow. So it was a nice trip to the Easter football camp, and it snowballed from there.
It's scary when you think about that now. When you look at obviously we'll talk later in the chat here about like Glasgow City and the structure that they built there. And we're all at clubs or universities in North America on the call that where girls soccer, as you call it here, is absolutely huge. But it's strange to think back to you being, becoming an international player playing in England, but having to start that late. When you think of the environment then compared to the environment now, it's bizarre.
No, it's incredible. It's incredible to think how far we've come, and that's where I probably really appreciate the career that I've had, because a lot of people, I know as football goes on in years to come, players won't understand what that was like to not have girls teams and for the opportunities to be so limited. I actually think the blend of experiencing that right at the beginning put me in a path that I knew it was going to be tougher, and I knew it was never going to be easy, but I never took anything for granted. Everything that happened, you worked hard for, and you gave that extra bit. And it also gave you a balance. Academies and stuff now are excellent. The opportunities are great. There's so many games in a calendar year for players, but a lot of that you miss out in the fun side of the game, which is just throwing the jumpers down and building a set of goals and playing with your friends, which is some of the best memories. So I was lucky enough that yes, there wasn't the same opportunities, but I certainly had a life and an upbringing that football was, you know, wholeheartedly at the centre of, but it's maybe just slightly different from what players experience now.
No, yeah. We'll have to get the question of your dad out of the way, because I know he's a director of coaching in Iowa, I think, now, Rocky. And as I was saying there, I'm pretty sure I played against him in my junior days. But how much of an influence was he on you when you were growing up as a player?
Listen, you know, in terms of an influence, I think I don't know, you can have that discussion whether football is in the genes as such, or, you know, if you're born a footballer, or do you create the footballer? I think in our family, it must run in the blood, because the way that we probably think about football, the passion that we've got, even at, you know, when you speak about junior level, I think back in the day, Ian, you'd probably be happy with this compliment as well. Junior football was a decent standard.
Oh, your dad was at standard. I was at Thornywood, so.
But no, listen, my dad was a fitness fanatic as well, and loved the game. Always playing every Saturday that he was here. I mean, he moved over to the States when I was probably only 9 or 10. So, and from there he was always back and forward. You know, I think he did camps throughout the summer where he was gone for 3 months and would come home again. But I think that influence, and I probably looked up to him in that sense. You know, he was always coming up with a daft celebration. He was the one scoring goals and always in the limelight. So I think as a kid, you watch that and you were as proud as punch at the side of the pitch. You know, if your dad's scoring the winner at a weekend and 300 Pollock supporters are going mad, then you kind of feel a bit special as well. So that's some of the memories as a kid growing up. But he's you know, I'm lucky in the sense that I've got a mum and a stepdad as well that were hugely supportive, and certainly them taxiing me around the country for probably the best part of a decade. Without that, you know, I wouldn't have got to where I've got to in my career.
Your first spell, we go through 3 spells at Glasgow City, but when I think it was 2007 when you went there at first. Well, and it was brief. Your first stay there, like
very brief.
Take us back to that, like going there and then leaving in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I came through from Cumbernauld. Basically, you're promoted to senior football at 17 years old. There was no real academy. There was no development stage in the game. You know, there was no in between. So you literally went from girls football to senior football. And when I came through that pathway, there was a couple of teams that you could have gone to in Glasgow, but I was lucky in the sense that I played national team football at under-19s level and had a brilliant friendship group and brilliant players at that age group. So a lot of those players were Edinburgh based, and one of them actually sees on this call just now, Kaylee Alton. So we had a really good group. So I made the choice to go to play for Whitehill Welfare through in Edinburgh, which was, you know, probably a lesser team in terms of it wasn't going to compete for the title. You know, it was volunteers that ran the club, but we went there with pretty much a really enthusiastic group of under-19 Scotland players. So that lasted for probably about 18 months, I think. And then the travelling just got a bit much. We had changed to Edinburgh City. We had managed to win a League Cup against Hibs, which was incredible considering the calibre of players that Hibs and Glasgow City had at that time. I looked to go to Glasgow City, and just through work commitments and the scheduling, they were trying to change from an amateur team to an almost like a hybrid type training model, which was very early on, even in Scottish women's football. It was unheard of. Training times were like 6 a.m. You were to be there for almost like a half gym session, on the pitch at 7, to then go to work. And I was only like 19 at the time by this point, and the demands of that for me, trying to get about, trying to get to work, was just too much. And I spoke to the club and was honest with them and said, look, I genuinely don't think it's going to work out. So I never played a lot. I think I played in a tournament in the summer. It actually bothers me that that's considered a part of my time at Glasgow City, because I don't even think I took my jacket off, to be honest. But no, it actually, as much as I'm joking saying that, it let me know where teams were trying to get to. And as much now, when I look back and I think, wow, I cannot believe that club were trying to do the right things way back then. Yeah. You know, and that was only the start for Glasgow City. That was where things really started to change. They had maybe won their first title, you know, within that space of time. And when I think back to that then, I'm like, wow, to think that dominance has continued almost right throughout my entire senior career.
Exactly.
In Scottish football, it's incredible. So yeah, that was the kind of first drop in at Glasgow City.
You had you went on to have like 4 years at Celtic, and when we see now the level of investment that Rangers and Celtic are putting into the women's side of the game, you must look at that now. I'm suspecting, even though it was probably starting at that time in your 4 years at Celtic, it must still be night and day now from what the old firm are pouring into it now.
Yeah, it is. But probably what I don't know even if bother is the right word, but what frustrates me is that yes, they were doing the right things back then. I think when I was part of a League Cup winning team at Celtic, which I think was maybe around 2010, that's the last bit of silverware that they've won. You know, and I just think for a club the size of Celtic and what they could have achieved, I think we pushed Glasgow City really close one year in the title around that same season, maybe the season after. I think we eventually finished third and Spartans leapfrogged above us. Maybe the last day of the season, it was really close. And I always wonder and think to myself, if Celtic had won the league around that time, would it really have changed the landscape of the game that much? Because the investment levels might have gone from just that almost amateur stroke hybrid model, and they would have really pushed it because of the success. Who knows? But you know, whatever's happened, I think in my career and any other player's career over this last 14 years is it's meant to be. You know, whatever's happened has happened. I think we could always have achieved more. But I think now when you look at the level of investment, they've finally caught on to the fact that it's worth investing in the women's game, and there's real potential and real assets within the game. It's, you know, it's now a brand and a product that offers that visualization for young girls and women. We need to be creating more female role models. We need to make it more accessible. You know, the games on TV and everything that goes with that is improving. So it's probably taken slightly longer than I think it could have, because back then there was the same position that we're in now. There was a wealth of talent coming through at youth level.
Yep. When you look back at that, and obviously those academies they're bringing in foreign players. So different now, right? When you look at the level of coach at Celtic and also the investment in foreign players at Rangers and stuff like that is totally different. When you look at that, go back to City after that for probably, okay, we'll call it spell one. If you're not counting the first one, we better call this spell one. But if it's spell one, you're part of the media now, and you saw obviously the obsession with the 10 last year and the 55 for Rangers and all that kind of stuff. You must look at that and think, well, what's the big fuss about 10? Because you're involved in 14. And like for City to win 14 in a row, and like from I think 2012 till 14, you're in that team that's winning titles into their Champions League last 16. And that was personally when I started to get to know like Eddie Lecky Black and stuff like that, who's a major friend of mine. And at that time, that must have been some environment to be in. You know, when you're getting winning titles, last 16 of the Champions League, that must have been, would you consider that possibly your peak as a player or around peak years as a player?
To be honest, for me, it was probably just the beginning. I had a year at Hibs just before that, and work at that time, you know, I had changed jobs and commitment wise. So I had probably a season where it was participation level. You know, I had fallen out of the national team. I wasn't part of that. Work commitments made it too difficult. It was a conversation again with Anna Sunyal at that time. And, you know, I had to be honest, I was a young adult. I had a mortgage, I had bills to pay. I couldn't take unpaid leave. A lot of the time, you know, you'd maybe go away for 12 to 14 days and you wouldn't get a lot of game time. I just didn't really think back then that football was going to be anything more than it could be. But it didn't stop me loving it. So even that year at Hibs, you know, I played, I performed, I tried my best. We got to a cup final, probably finished like third in the league, thereabouts. And then, you know, that I was content with that because I couldn't look beyond there. And then Eddie phoned me at the end of that season and says, look, how do you fancy coming to Glasgow City? Which I still remember taking that call at work, and, you know, I was genuinely shocked. I thought, God's sake, you know, Glasgow City are flying. I think a centre mid was moving on. And he says, look, I want you to come in and I want you to play and whatever. So come in and train, see how you feel. I knew most of the girls anyway, so there was nothing scary in that aspect of it. The thought of going back to Glasgow, I was staying in Edinburgh at this time, so that kind of excited me. I thought a wee bit more time back in Glasgow, can see family and whatnot. And it kind of kicked on for there. But even in that period of time, we had such a good team. Eddie's coaching at that point was something I had never experienced before. You know, it was a different level. It was probably based a lot on Barcelona's model, the 4-3-3 formation. Everything was rondos, tiki-taka. Coached me in a way that I had never been coached before, because when you think about the girls' pathway back then, it was participation level for most. It's volunteer coaches and parents that were taking training sessions. At no point had you really experienced a top coach. So this blew my mind. I could not believe how easy football had become, just with small differences in the game, understanding other basics of the game and how to develop as a player, how to make the people around you even better. So it was unreal. I think we won 2 back-to-back trebles, which probably felt too easy, I would need to say, at the point where you're looking at the women's game and going, it's nice winning, but sometimes you would like it to be a bit closer and a bit tougher. But at the same time, the quality that we had and the level of coaching and the contact hours that we had and everything that the club were trying to achieve, it was just that we had kicked on a lot quicker than other teams around us. So you could only beat what was in front of you.
Yeah.
You know, quarterfinals of the Champions League came about. I think I actually left to go to Notts County 2 or 3 weeks before the quarterfinals of the Champions League. Parted ways with Glasgow City. The opportunity came about to go to Notts County, and that again was probably a gamble for me, because life was so comfortable. Again, I had moved back to Glasgow. I had a different job, a better job. The balance with football was good. But then you start to get hungry. I had been back in the national team since 2013. Caps are starting to come. Opportunities are starting to come. You're, putting yourself up against other players and you're going, I actually think I can mix it with you, and I can actually mix it with better than you. And that's where the competitive nature that never goes away, that never leaves you. Even that wee kid that's going up against, like an 11-year-old Leanne going up against 14-year-old boys. I want to be better than you. Like, I want to get close. So that's the same mentality that then continued throughout my career. And so for there, Glasgow City, Notts County, I'd probably say that spell towards the end of Notts County and the 3 seasons that followed after that is probably where I would not say peaked, but I think I had I was established as a player. I knew what I was good at. I knew, as I say, how to make other players better, and I knew what my role within the team that I was playing in, what that looked like. And I certainly felt, I was as fit as I had ever been at that point.
I think at that time, like around that time was when, like, my own kind of friendship with Eddie, and I knew he'd been to Barcelona and I'd been to Barcelona, same thing as coaches, and gone and looked how things were done there. And obviously when I went on to be like CEO at Airdrie and bring him into the men's game, because I just thought he was just an unbelievable coach. And it was nothing to do with the fact that we were close friends or stuff like that, because I was going to get hung at Airdrie for bringing in someone from the women's game anyway. But how much of an influence do you think? I mean, you've spoke about your influence on Eddie on you as a player. You're now looking to be a coach. How much of an influence is he going to be on you as a coach?
Yeah, I think, throughout my career, I've, always looked at whoever I've been coached by, some good, some bad, some indifferent. And I think that's the beauty as a player, is that you do get to pick and choose the best bits of that. Every player is different. And I think that's why you see different teams that, a certain manager might have a level of success somewhere, and then they move teams, club, environment, country, and it just doesn't quite work, because I think every player takes something different from that experience, and you can never please everybody. I think you learn that quite quickly in your coaching journey as well. So no, of course there's bits. I think the technical side of the game with Eddie was probably the bit that impressed me the most. I loved that, just different types of angles, the way you would receive
level of detail. Yeah,
looking ahead, and and things like even just basic stuff now, like scanning and stuff. A lot of the top players do it without even thinking, but back then there was, it's the most simplest thing to do in the game. But the amount of midfielders that probably were never doing it,
Yeah.
you know. But so no, he developed me at a level that, you know, I'll be forever thankful with that. And certainly now there's probably the odd drill that creeps up in my training sessions that
The tiki-taka one.
noted down back then.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. No, I had some good ones to steal, to be fair. When you're racking up titles and like at City, and then you take that move to Notts County. I mean, were you still working when you were down at Notts County, or were you that's just full time? You've gone full time completely, or did you try and?
Yeah, I was full time, but that in the world of Leanne Crichton somehow ends up with 2 or 3 jobs anyway. So before I knew it, I was studying a degree whilst I was there. I had volunteered to go and work with Notts County in the community in their community projects that they run, because it tied in nicely with my degree. And then I also took a job as the head coach of the Notts university team, like their second team. So I actually operated under Tanya Oxtoby, who went on to be the Bristol women's manager. She's now assistant with Emma Hayes at Chelsea, and she had that interim period with Stuart McLaren at the women's national team. So football's a small world in that sense, that she kind of almost gave me my first opportunity in coaching down there. And you know, my days off at Notts County, I would be, you know, jumping on a team bus and taking the girls to Coventry or, you know, wherever close by, a couple of hours away, picking the team, organising that, taking training sessions. So it ended up pretty full on, to be honest. But I always knew that when I was going away, I was never, you know, I was 26, I think at the time, maybe 27 actually. You're an adult, you've got responsibilities, you don't really like too many long lies in a week. Yeah. It's not about kicking back and just enjoying full-time football. I knew that I had to achieve other things during that time. I was never going to just go down there and lap up the experience and stroll about drinking coffee, which I did quite a bit of, by the way. But I just tried to take as much from the experience and network as much as I possibly could, and just get my hands dirty where possible. So that experience was unbelievable. You're away from home, you don't have the same friends, albeit you make new ones, your family's not there. So the downtime that you've got can be quite a lonely place if you don't have a contingency plan. Yeah. So I managed to find some good projects down there to keep me going.
Keep going. When you come back up the road to Glasgow City, like I'm looking back at the first year there, and I think you were Player of the Year in the first year that you come back, 2018. And that last spell at Glasgow City, how would you sum up that when you reflect on it?
Unbelievable, to be honest. I mean, coming back, when I came back, Notts County went bust and the team was administrated, and pretty much the last hour before the new league season started off, it was the same year that we would go to the Euros, our first major competition with the national team. That happened 3 months before it. The transfer window was closed. You were left homeless, jobless, and basically 12 weeks out from the biggest tournament of your life. So, you know, you could crumble in those moments, you could stress, you could panic, but at that same time, Glasgow City reached out and, you know, made it happen for me to come back. Financially, the national team had received funding back then, so they supported me in the short term to let me get back on my feet, because you know, you couldn't come back in and try and get a full-time job but ask for the entire summer off and X amount of hours in the week that you need to train and additional sessions and whatnot. So yeah, I came back in, and as I say, like, my fitness over that 18 months, and because of the programme that the national team players were on at that time, had gone to a different level. I was probably one of the fittest in that Notts County team, and that was with 6 or 7 England internationals in there as well. The level of intensity in those games pushed you every single week. You know, sometimes you would get a half time and it would feel like you had played 2 90s already, because the speed of the game was so much quicker. So I came home and settled right back in, and yeah, kicked on at Glasgow City. We had a good season. The Euros experience in that summer was incredible. Gave all the girls, I think, a different platform, different exposure. Women's football really took off, I think, in terms of the media. Certainly there was a lot more coverage, and that was enjoyable. You know, it was a nice time to come back home, and you know, I just set up doing personal training, which I had done previously, and get myself back on the road again. And for that, you know, I had always told myself over those years that I had figured out that football doesn't last forever. But at the same time, it could last for another day, or it could last for another decade.
Yeah.
So you need to live in the moment. You need to enjoy it. And my whole life, I've made work commitments work around, you know, being able to play football. Certainly for the best part of 13, 14 years now, that's been at the forefront of everything that I've managed to do. So no, it was incredible in Glasgow City, those seasons that we had. Again, getting to the quarterfinals of the Champions League was probably one of the sweetest moments, because I had missed out on it, physically playing in it the number of years before. And even that time, I was trying to say to players, listen, I walked away from this opportunity a number of years ago, and I never thought it would happen again. So the fact that we're here and we've achieved it, it still might never happen again. So we need to enjoy this moment even more than we did back then, even more than the club celebrated it, because you know, the moments in football are absolutely priceless like that.
Yeah. Do you think like a team from Scotland can ever bridge that gap? Looking at the teams that you lost to in the last eights, I think, like, was it Barcelona and then Wolfsburg or whatever, like that kind of, I mean, that gap. Right. I remember like them, even in that run at one point, and Eddie had brought me in when I get sacked at East Kilbride, and Eddie had brought me in to work with the 17s at City at one point, and I think it was that year that Leon came in their private jet, and they had and we had still like Emma, Eddie's missus, was had to get off work from the bank to come to the game, and it was just ridiculous, right? And they flew in a private jet, and their transfer budget, I think, was €4 million or something. And we had people coming in from their work to play in the game, and it was just, it's bizarre, isn't it? You know, it's
incredible. It is the gulf in that that sense, with the money and the budgets and the resources that clubs have got. I think that's where UEFA probably and FIFA as well need to step up and probably find another European tournament that works alongside it, like the Europa League and the Champions League, because other teams just now that are close but are not close enough will never get that opportunity to take the next step in terms of even the financial gain, you know, of getting to a semi-final and what that could mean for clubs, or the equivalent, you know, for another 5 or 6 years, to allow teams like Glasgow City to go and compete and maybe get to a semi-final or a final of a Europa League, and the financial gain that would have would then allow Scottish football to grow and develop. So until such times as that happens and more money is generated within the game, and we find a way in Scotland to have sustainability and investment at the top end of the game, Glasgow City are punching well above their weight, and they have been for some time now.
Yeah. Final one from me on the club before I pass on to Claire on the Scotland career, Leanne. When it ends at Glasgow City, there must have been a part of you in there that thinks, I'm going to be a coach now, or I'm not going to play, or maybe that's it. Or was there something, or were you torn a little bit between whether they played a coach and when the Motherwell thing came up?
Yeah, I think probably over the best part of this year, I mean, lockdown is extended that, and it's been tough for everyone. I think the ending that we had in 2019, the double in terms of the league, the Scottish Cup win, I get married like 3 days after that. So I was kind of at a place where the World Cup had been in 2019, and everything that I could probably achieve in football, I knew I had really sucked the life out of everything that was there in terms of me being at the top of my game. So for the next year and during lockdown, I probably hummed and hawed about where I was at. You know, physically, you're out running, pounding the pavements every day, you know, submit a 5K by this time in the day, make sure you do an upper body session in your hour of exercise outdoors, all that sort of nonsense. So psychologically, I think I went to a different place during lockdown, where you start to think, I'm into this, but I don't know if I'm wholeheartedly there. But the emotional connection that I've got with the club meant that I could never walk away during that time. So I had to give it one more season, and my role probably changed last season. You know, I was in and out the team. Scott didn't really think that I was maybe at the same level that I was. Other players had opportunities, but at the same time, you know, I knew what the club was about. And when you're constantly chasing that next title, nobody ever wants to be associated with a team that loses that 14 in a row or that 13 in a row, which would have been. So, you know, I gave everything that I had, and the opportunity came about, and I spoke to Glasgow City and I explained to them where I was at. mentally, emotionally, physically, in life, with work commitments, study commitments, and there was opportunities to stay, of course there was, but the way I tried to explain it to them, and you know, I could stay at Glasgow City in a protected bubble for the next 2 or 3 seasons, live off the glory of perhaps another title, or be part of a team that is dislodged, you know, for that top spot. Win or lose, I don't think I would have been held accountable, because I would never have been in a position that would have been the limelight of that. And I also don't think that I would have learned any more than what I'm learning now.
Yeah. So
to just go away in that fresh approach, I'm seeing a new club, meeting new people, it's a different side of the game. I'm involved in the commercial discussions, everything from washing the bibs again to being part of the, you know, sports science, the GPS, the delivery of gym sessions, constant liaison with the players. So there's a whole number of things on my remit now that I wouldn't have needed to be, you know, I would never have seen that exposure at Glasgow City, because they're miles ahead of that just now in terms of the women's and girls programme.
Yeah, brilliant. That covers me off in the club stuff. That was awesome, Leanne. Thanks very much. I'm going to pass you on to Claire for the Scotland career. Over to you, Claire.
Yeah. First of all, congrats on a brilliant international career, 72 caps. Do you want to talk about how you felt the very first time you got called up for the national team?
Yeah, I mean, it was that long ago now. I think my first cap, I was 19, back probably 2005, 2006, which again, it was a bit of a whirlwind, because, you know, as I mentioned at the beginning, my first club team was Cumbernauld, and I was only 15, you know, probably going on 16. And then within the space of 3.5 years, I had gone from not knowing what girls and women's football really was, to being, you know, right at the heart of it and involved in 2 national team programmes, and then was quite quickly invited up to the A squad. So that was almost a bit surreal, in the sense that you're thinking, well, that was a lot easier than I thought it might have been. But then I got there and realised the standard that was there. But no, it's proud moments. I think now you look back, at the time, I won't lie, you don't wholeheartedly wreck it, especially that young. You know, it's hard to tell a 19-year-old to value moments and take it in and enjoy it and live it. You know, the things that I'm saying now, live in the moment and appreciate it, because it might not come again. But no, it was the proudest moment.
It's awesome. I get to go back home quite a lot, and I coach girls, and growing up, nobody knew any of the girls that played on the Scotland team. The last 2 times I went home, they're wearing jerseys, and actually I wanted to show a picture because a couple of the girls at Ayr had the jersey on with Crichton on the back of it. How do you think the success of getting to the Euro 2017 helped the women's game?
Incredibly, yeah. I mean, I think we could feel it growing as a national team. We had missed out, you know, heartbreakingly in years gone by. I think by that point, 2017, when you speak about growing a team and how many years and hours it takes to get to where you want to be, I think that was probably us with that group. Certainly, I think it, you know, at the pinnacle of where they were going to be. So I think if we were ever going to qualify, it would be then. And we almost felt we had to, because there was some players that we knew would retire off the back of that tournament. So it added a different type of pressure. But when we qualified and the elation of that, I think, you know, as a person and an individual, it's almost just that relief that lifts off the whole nation, because since 1998, we had longed to be at a major tournament. You know, as a kid watching Scotland play at that World Cup in 98, you felt like it was something that happened all the time. So to then be an adult that was part of that experience in 2017, all those years later, was just phenomenal. And from there, again, the media helped with that, because I think having England in our group at that time also helped, because across the UK, you know, the media hype was incredible, and everybody was looking forward to that being the opening game. So that certainly helped. But no, I think a lot of people opened their eyes and switched their TVs on that summer, and, you know, I think their opinions changed, certainly for the better.
That's brilliant. And what about going back to back and then qualifying for the World Cup 2019? Just talk a little bit about the journey between that 2 years, the Euros, and then what work went into the 2 years before the World Cup.
Yeah, I mean, there was a fair bit of transition when you look at, you know, Gemma Fay retired, Ifeoma Madike retired, Leanne Ross retired. Right away, 3 players that were a huge part of that. And from the Euros, we had lost, you know, Kim Little, Lizzie Arnott, Emma Mitchell, Jen Beattie, all to injury. So the transition period in that next 2 years was probably quite drastic, in the sense that we had got used to not having those players with us, and they were reintegrated back into the group. The new coaching team came in. For some people that was a good thing, and for others it probably didn't feel that great. You know, I was one of those players that went from being a core member of that team and starting games relentlessly, and for a whole calendar year between the Euros and the World Cup in 2019, I didn't play a single game, not 1 minute. I was never on the bench. I sat for a whole season, a whole year in the stand. So that was tough mentally, to go from that high and, you know, loving every minute of being an international player, to then another side of it that you mentally need to tune in. You've got 2 choices. You either be the teammate or you be selfish. And thankfully for me, I chose to be a teammate, because that was what was important. I wanted other players to feel what we had felt in 2017. And that campaign was incredible. When you look at the talent and the quality that we've got, or we had in that squad, and still do, you know, the moments Poland away, when Lisa pops up with that moment of magic and wins the game for us very late on, to get beat against Switzerland, and then go and watch them celebrate in another game, and then turn them over. There was some incredible moments with that. So I think is a personal achievement actually making it to the World Cup, off the back of a tough year in terms of playing time and whatnot, was up there with one of the sweetest to be part of that team. And back to back again, the hype increased. Then England came again. You know, we've not really been able to get rid of them at major tournaments. There seems to be a pattern developing, but no, it was incredible. And I think, you know, the media exposure and opportunities for female players to go and be pundits, that also came about around that same time, and that exposure increased tenfold, which was incredible to see that on TV.
Brilliant. Do you have a favourite game or a favourite cap that sticks out, one in particular?
Probably the Argentina game, and I mean, it sticks probably in my throat a wee bit to still think about that game, you know, and every once in a while you relive it in your head. You know, maybe somebody sparks a memory and you start to think beyond 6 to 8 minutes that night, you know, where everything was going really well. But to have missed out in the first 2 games, if I speak about me personally, and as I mentioned there, the journey and getting to the World Cup, you know, being in the stand for so long, then with these tournaments, you know, you're supported so well. Your family comes, your friends come, and there's no worse feeling than never taking to the pitch. I don't know if people understand, you know, people think it's incredible to be there, but actually there's a responsibility on you, you know, that people are there to support the team, but they have invested their whole life basically in making you who you are and helping you. And you know, every day having a message, no, I'm not in the team, you know, I'm not starting, it's another opportunity gone. So when the Argentina game came around and I knew I was starting that game, I can't remember actually when the team was named, maybe the night before, the morning of the game, again, the weight of the world just lifted, you know. And I remember standing at the centre circle for kickoff, and I could actually tune in and I could hear my family in the stand, you know, just shouting like, come on, Leanne, let's go. And that's something that, I mean, that will live with me forever, because to go on and play that night, yes, you know, we threw away a 3-goal advantage, and I know we probably speak more about the VAR experience in that game than anything else, but to take to the pitch in a World Cup and I think go and do your country proud, certainly for the most part in that game, with your friends and family in the stands watching, you know, televised back home, knowing that your nana, who's 87 years old, will be going mad in the living room on her own, you know, watching it. That's what football is. So certainly the Argentina game, I think, for the amount of blood, sweat and tears that went into getting there, certainly felt pretty sweet.
That's awesome. I had the Argentina game on my notes, but I didn't know if I should bring it up or not.
Yeah, I know, it's always it's a
Yeah.
fine line.
You had a lot of different coaches through your career in the national team. Which one inspired you the most to then become a coach?
Undoubtedly Anna Sunyal. I mean, the journey that we went on over that 12 years, she pretty much was there from the very beginning when I was a moody 19-year-old, you know, who thought I was better than everybody and could do everything and was too good to buy into running drills and stuff, whatever that was back then. You know, I don't need to run more, I just play with the ball type thing. To then develop that relationship with her throughout in and out the national team for her to support me in my personal journey. What she showed me was that a lot of people speak about now, it's first and foremost a human being comes before the footballer. And that was an enormous part about Anna and everything that she did. People I know question technically and tactically, was she good enough to be a national team coach for that long? You know, should Scotland have changed it earlier? But what she grew within that team was on a personal level. She looked after the individuals. You know, she made you feel special in the moments that you needed it most. If you were struggling and you needed to pick up the phone, she was there. You know, she listened, she supported, she inspired. She was always looking beyond what was happening now to what can we achieve next? What should we be doing next? You know, what are you doing with your life? What are you doing with work? Are you studying? What is it you're doing? You know, it was always constant questions about not just football. You know, football always came second. And those bits about Anna and her experiences and, you know, speaking different languages, going across the world, taking in a whole nation as your own, you know, it can never be as easy as she made it look at times. So certainly the last number of years working under Anna, probably the last 6 or 7, that we really shared some good times and got to know each other probably on a different level, you know, in a player coach capacity. She, you know, there's a lot of bits of her that I now try and you know, take away and feed that into the environment that I work within.
Brilliant. Growing up, did you have a player that you looked up to that inspired you and made you want to play on the national team, or did the national team just kind of happen for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the national team just happened. I don't think, I mean, as a kid growing up, I was, you know, born in Glasgow, East End. You're either on the blue side or the green side of the city. It was how it was. If you ever said you supported Partick Thistle, you'd have been as well just giving up your lunch money there and then. You know, it just was not acceptable. So I grew up watching the Old Firm constantly, those players around that time, you know, late 90s, early 2000s, some incredible midfielders, you know, came to Glasgow. When you look at the likes of Barry Ferguson, you know, Scotland captain, Rangers captain, he was always a player that I tried to replicate, you know, what he did. I would watch Old Firm games, going up against a Moravchik, a Neil Lennon, you know, Paul Lambert, even back in the day, Giovanni Van Bronckhorst at Rangers. So there was a number of good midfielders, world-class midfielders that you used to watch on TV, and there only was ever men's football. That's the beauty of it now with, you know, the WSL and the fact that games are on Sky Sports and BT Sport and the BBC are covering women's games. Hopefully young girls will be able to have those female role models that when they're asked this question, they can hopefully name a female player. But for me, it was all about, you know, men's Scottish football, which is not the end of the world. So Barry Ferguson was probably the main one for me, and to go on and, you know, play for Scotland the way he did, and now our paths have crossed in the media as well, is you know, quite funny that, you know, in the beginning you're a bit like, this is bizarre and strange. Now he just bugs the life out of me. So
that's brilliant. And then last question for me before Ashley, who was your, not on the club level, but at international level, who was your favourite player to play alongside?
It's a tough one because I have been really lucky. I don't know if I could really choose one. I think the one that will stand out for everybody is Kim Little, you know, to play alongside Kim. I think it was Tobin Heath recently speaking about her and said she's undoubtedly the best player she's ever played with. So that probably gives you an indication again of the level that Kim operates at day to day. But actually during those last number of years when Kim had a number of injuries and she missed out on a lot of the national team games, being in the midfield alongside Caroline Weir was just incredible. You know, playing alongside her and as a 6 and an 8, we had a brilliant relationship, a brilliant partnership. You know, I just knew that don't take too many touches and get Caroline on the ball as quickly as you possibly can and get her higher up the pitch. So I try to complement her game in that sense, but she's an absolute technician, Caroline. She's incredible. I think you're seeing that now. Don't think she gets the recognition that she deserves, even down in England. You know, I think she's a focal point of that Man City team, but she goes about her business very quietly and she's very humble about her talent. And sometimes that means that people don't speak about you. So Kim and Caroline are certainly two of the best.
Brilliant. Well, I'll pass you on to Ashley. She's going to finish it up.
Thank you.
Hi, Leanne. Thanks so much for your time today. We definitely appreciate it. So you're definitely respected and experienced player, and you know, now being at Motherwell, being the assistant coach and player. How is the transition from, you know, being just full-time player and now in the coaching side?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's been tough in the sense that when we took over the post at Motherwell, there was no real handover from last season. There was nothing in place at all. So between Paul and I, we had quite a lot of work to get to. We had to clear out some players that were there and try and recruit, you know, some new players for the season ahead. On top of that, you're dealing with the facility side of it and trying to get, as I mentioned, sports science and gym programs, GPS and whatnot. So for the first probably 12 weeks, it was full on, really hectic. You're thinking to yourself, wow, life was so much easier as a player. You know, and that's when you start to appreciate all these coaches and volunteers that you've worked with more so than you maybe did. But now things have settled down. You know, the playing squad have responded really, really well to what we're asking of them. And the fact that I'm on the pitch still for at least probably 70% of the time just now helps. I think that helps with the balance, that, you know, we get that opportunity as coaches to see it from the side of the pitch and also get that feeling for me being on the pitch and what that feedback can do to benefit the squad. So no, I really, really enjoyed it, more so than I maybe mentioned. I wasn't sure that I would love coaching. But right now, you know, things are going well. And when you actually feel part of something that players are developing, both on the pitch and off the pitch, and, you know, I'm constantly, as I say, going on at them about being good human beings and the way you carry the club badge. And, you know, it can't just be down to 2 or 3 teams in Scotland to try and drive the game forward. Everybody as a collective has got to do more. So, no, I'm really, really enjoying it. It's been more seamless than I thought it might be.
Yeah, you don't realise how much is actually going on behind the scenes as a player and the coaching role. And so talking about that, like, how involved are you in, you know, the planning, the training, organising? Is there like a specific aspect that you like doing the best, or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the office. We train just now Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. So we're in 3 days. Then we're on the pitch match days on the weekend. So it's kind of pretty much part-time, but with that, I'm in the office those 3 days before we head to the pitch. So, you know, I'll go in and with Paul, we're constantly, there's dialogue, whether it's on the phone, via message, then we're in the office those 3 days, and that's where we start to nail down what those sessions will look like and what the personnel that we've got is available. You know, you're still dealing with things like players are working and can't make sessions, albeit I think the players have recognised how hard they need to work to be at every session if possible, which is great. It makes our job a lot easier. So, you know, there's every bit of it. You know, Paul's really given me my place and feeds everything to me. The feedback's there. It's an open forum in terms of personnel, how we see things, how we see players performing. Then we've got the analysts that have come in. We've got the GPS there that we're, you know, constantly across that in the week. And that's probably something that I've got more experience with that as a player, because I know what the demands have looked like for so long. So it makes it easier for me to analyse those sort of numbers and pull that from what players need going into the next week. And I speak to our other assistant coach about that. So there's certain aspects it's probably more my responsibility in terms of the fitness and conditioning of the players just now. And then together we combine that with what the sessions look like. And, you know, one day a week I'm probably full coaching kit and never involved in the session. The other two I'll be part of that towards the prep for the weekend and on the pitch, and trying to do my bit to talk to the players and communicate the coaching points that we've got, and then on the pitch on a Sunday, and from there it's back home and, you know, get the Excel sheets sorted and the PowerPoint sorted for the feedback for the beginning of the week. So, you know, the norm would be maybe come home, a glass of wine, feet up, relax. Sometimes that happens, but I've now just got my computer to fire some information and never switch off. But no, certainly it's a combined effort.
That's great. Like, you're the bridge, you know, to the coaching staff and the players, and just with all your experience that, you know, you've had at other clubs, you can definitely bring to this club, and just be, you know, that role model for all the younger girls in the club that you are with currently.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's that aspect of it that I think I've worked with coaches in the past that maybe overthink how they should behave, you know, or when you do cross that line from player to coach, do you become somebody different? Do you speak in a different way? But I genuinely think that the way I am, I'm probably a fairly serious character anyway, in terms of the playing group, and a bit older. So I think that transition has been nice as well, that the players know where they stand with me. That won't change whether I'm on the pitch as a player or I'm on the side as a coach. You know, that looks the exact same. And we always try and encourage that. You know, it's an open forum, it's an open door policy. Anything that you want or you need, you come and speak to us, and we'll try and use our skill set to help and work through that as a group. So I feel, you know, that was probably a concern, that you come from being this player at Glasgow City that, you know, most other teams in Scotland don't like because they're successful. That's the reality. You know, people don't like successful people, and they almost see success and confidence as an arrogance, which that again is a fine line. I know some people that are confident can also be arrogant, but to try and then take yourself out of that protected bubble and into a different environment where you're actually saying, listen, I'm actually okay. I think I can make this work. That was the scary part in the beginning, but, you know, there was no issues with that at all.
That's great. Talking about like your coaching education, like when did you start really diving into your coaching badges, and is it the license you're currently on? Can you talk about that? Yeah,
so 2017 we were offered an opportunity as a bespoke license, like an all-female coaching license in Scotland. So there was 6 of us in the national team programme at that time that completed our B license, which was great. You know, that gave us an opportunity and a taste to get on the coaching ladder. Previously, before that, as I mentioned, I had, you know, been at the University of Nottingham and had been coaching there. Ian spoke about my dad, who's over in America, so I had been over and coached at summer camps with him and my brothers, and certainly in and around the game at a decent level. You know, that youth pathway and whatnot, that you always end up coaching somewhere. But, you know, 2017 probably made it serious in the sense that that was the beginning, you know, the proper beginning of a coaching pathway. And then from there I've kicked on, and lockdown made it difficult again with that 18 months, you know, limited opportunities to go and grow and develop. But I'm on the A license just now, and all that I've got left of that is my, you know, physical assessment, practical assessment, which will be somewhere probably between now and February next year. So yeah, to get that done, you know, that'll be another one ticked off the list, and more experience gained. Certainly the practical week that we had just at the beginning of this month actually was excellent. You know, again, networking with different types of coaches, seeing a different coaching style. Other ex-pros and current pros were on that course as well, so you kind of get a flavour of, right, okay, he plays at that level, but what is he like as a coach? Because that's ultimately the first question that you're asked. You know, because you're a decent footballer doesn't mean that you're going to be a decent coach. I think it's totally different. So that was a nice experience just to get your hands dirty again and get in and get that overview. So get the A licence completed and we'll see where it takes us. I mean, I don't think at this stage I would be too stressed about thinking pro licence and needing to just tick boxes and try and get bits of paper there. For me, I think I've got to, for the next number of years, just work at the coaching side of it and that experience and success and failure and whatever that might look like and reflection and see where that takes me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a journey. Now you're involved a lot with like the media side of things, like pundit and podcasts. Is there like a specific thing that really interested, like what interested you to getting into the media kind of side of things?
If I'm honest, purely the fact that Notts County had been liquidated and I came home in that summer and was here for 2017 when things kind of took off, ended up probably, what you say, every cloud has got a silver lining, and that was certainly it, that opportunities came about that summer. I networked, met a couple of people. They said they were looking to get, more females involved in their outlets and coverage. And I says, well, look, I've got some free time in my hands and, I'll give it a go. I might not be great at it, but I'll certainly, take the opportunity, sink or swim. It's the old saying that you probably live and die by at times. So that was where it kind of took off. And, some of the players that I mentioned, there was maybe 6 or 7 players that got opportunities, and some liked it, some didn't, some, dip out in and out now and again. But for me, it was the easiest job, but it's the most enjoyable part of football, in the sense that you're literally just speaking about the game. You're constantly across games, you're out at football matches, you're speaking to people that are like-minded, different opinions, different debates, different viewpoints. And I think coming from the women's game, and a lot of the coverage that I'm across is in the men's game, as much as it's the same sport, I think our pathways and the development of the game has been really different. The way we think about the game emotionally and mentally and physically, how the game's played out, is very different. So I think that's given me a really good perspective, and that sort of opinion has been welcomed within the media. I think that those are the bits that people never really thought about, never really realised that that's what women's football was. So no, it's been super enjoyable and certainly a lot easier, to kick back and have a cup of tea and watch a game of football and then speak about it at the end is much easier than some jobs, I guess, that you could be doing. So I find myself in a really lucky position. I never take it for granted.
Absolutely. Just now you're getting a lot of opportunities with this kind of media side. Is there like a goal? Is there something that you still want to do, within the next 5 years? Is there somewhere, that you still want to accomplish as you're getting into this role?
No, I mean, I genuinely, I don't know if this is the right outlook or not. People probably go, you should always have goals in everything you do. You should always be looking ahead. And I know I do that, and I'm driven in the sense that, I work really hard at what I do. I don't take it for granted. I put a number of hours into preparation. I'm probably always over-prepared than under-prepared. I think about it, I analyse and critique my own performance, which, people are like, surely somebody tells you if you were good or you were bad. It doesn't matter. I need to know if I was good or I was bad or I can be better. So there's loads of opportunities, I think, that could come, but at the same time, I'm probably at a stage in life just now where I'm living in the moment. I'm working really hard. My A licence, I'll get that over the line soon. I'm a full-time student just now as well, studying a journalism and broadcasting degree as well. That will finish up probably June 2022. And then I think at that point I can probably reflect. I don't imagine I'll have another season left in my legs, albeit I've probably been saying that for the last 2 seasons. So we'll see. I'll get back to you on that one. But I think then once I arrive at that destination, if I can get to next summer and I've had as much fun as I'm having now with as many experiences and opportunities, maybe then I'll start looking towards, right, what does the next part of your 30s look like? What could you achieve before you're 40? Maybe, but no, honestly, life is really, really good, and I try and not take it for granted. I think just saying yes to a lot of opportunities has certainly put me in this position and opening up as many doors and opportunities as I possibly can. is allowing me to probably develop as a person.
Absolutely. And just from a female, like, I just thank you for being a great role model, you know, for, you know, the girls' side is obviously growing so much in Scotland, and, you know, seeing you as a player and now in this kind of media role is just great for females to see. So just thank you on behalf of a female.
Thank you so much.
To the game tonight, but my last question is prediction for the score tonight.
Yeah, I think the girls will be comfortable tonight. I mean, looking back at the Hungary game away, I think it was a tough place to go. I know the travel. Pedro was just in terms of the new regime, so I think the group are starting to settle down now. I was at the last game at Hampden, and you know, they dominated. They scored a lot of goals, so I'm probably going to think there will be at least 5 tonight. I hope anyway.
A comfortable win would be nice, would it?
Yeah.
I appreciate your time, Leanne.
No, thank you so much.
Awesome. I'll just wrap it up for everyone, Leanne, and say thank you very much, first of all, to Claire and Ashley for helping me out today, and also to you for taking the time and having the guts to say that Scotland are going to win a home game 5-0. When does that? I seem to remember that before the Faroe Islands game and stuff like that. We'll gloss over that. No, it's terrific for everyone, Leanne, that A, that you took the time, and B, that you were so like honest and forthcoming there. Terrific. We've got something like 300 members, 300 Scots all over North America that get to see this through our various channels. And it's been awesome having you on. So really appreciate it. And we got you in within the first 75 minutes, so you'll get to the BBC on time and not get shouted at before you present the game tonight. So hopefully you go and enjoy the game, and thanks very much for giving us the time this Friday. I appreciate it.
No, that's excellent. Thanks very much for your time and your questions, and taking time to research my career and work life. It means a lot. Thank you.
Brilliant. Have a good one, Leanne. Enjoy the game.
Cheers. Thanks everyone. See you later.
Cheers, everybody. We'll see you next week.